Hi Ansford. Today's assembly is about a topic that's quite sensitive and is very dear to a lot of our hearts. Let's see if you guys can figure it out. So the first slide is, what do you know about these images? You can see quite a lot of things going on here. You've got a picture in Coventry. You've got some signs saying justice for George Floyd and some people on the floor there. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of what's going on, but just in case you're not, I'm going to talk you through some of the history of it and what's going on in the news right now. So the pictures represent the Black Lives Matter movement. It's a movement which began in 2013 after the death of a young man called, well, he was actually a teenager, called Trayvon Martin. He was murdered as he was going about his daily life. He didn't pose a threat to anyone, he didn't have any weapons. And what ended up happening was all charges were dropped against the person who did murder him, which led to a big movement trying to protest against police brutality, white supremacy, and generally just looking for justice for black people. So Trayvon Martin was not the only boy and he was not the only black person who suffered from these types of situations. Since him, in 2013, there have been many other deaths and unfair cases, hence the hashtag Say Their Names. You can see here all the names, like in a slide, of everyone who suffered from something similar. And the reason why Black Lives Matter has become an even bigger thing right now, as we are in 2020, is because of a video that went viral of this man in the corner here, who suffered from 8 minutes of having an officer's knee in his neck, on top of his neck, and eventually ended up dying. So who is this man? His name is George Floyd. He was a 46-year-old African-American family man who the only charges against him were that he was suspected of using a counterfeit bill in America, and it ended up with the police coming and his eventual death that day. He is one of many who are believed to have been killed because of their race, and due to it, there have been protests, not just in America, but around the world, where people are protesting against police brutality, and they want to defund the police so we can put our money elsewhere into the community, and they are addressing racism against black people. Now what I want you to do is just to watch this video with me. It's a spoken word poem and it will summarize the kinds of things that are going on for you in quite a nice way. So.
You tell me I'm free. You tell me I'm equal. You tell me I'm wanted, but our blood on your ground teaches its own sequel. I can't breathe. That badge that you wear, that code that you stand by, it's full of shh. No more cries. No more pain, no more protests. We just play in the game, that's what they say, yet we keep on dying. Mothers crying, souls are flying, government is lying. This land that we call a country is horrifying, and I can't breathe. Sky is lit by those flames that howl for justice, but we can't fight for no justice if y'all are bloodless, gutless. Man, it make me disgusted to see another black soul gone from the face of this earth. You were not born racist, you were taunted. How many others? From the beginning of time, we were held down, taught to keep our head down, taught to slam that shovel into the hard ground, taught by a whip that cracks with its own sound, taught to be happy with the constant booming letdowns. They handed me my life, I looked at it and had a breakdown, cause I knew my life was doomed as soon as I take off that cap and gown. We are in a state of emergency, an emergency that needs a revival. A revival of the black boy in prison, the black boy on the street, the black girl with dreams, the black girl who's been made obsolete. America didn't get better. We just made it look better. We are still slaves. Slaves of poverty. Slaves of the media. Slaves of mental illness. Slaves of the demon that roars in the night. Slaves of a land that was stolen in broad daylight. I can't breathe. I get scared when I walk down the street. I get scared when I hear a knock at my door. I I get scared when a cop passes by, because I don't know if that's my final goodbye. I am the black boy broken by blue-suited bullies, buried by bloody bullets, beaten broke because bliss bought bruises. From the beginning of time, you've taken and taken and taken from those burnt, sunny summer fields. You've taken and taken and taken from the man trying to take care of his children. You've taken and taken and taken your knee to my neck. And as a wise leader once said, it's not a chip on my shoulder, that's your foot on my neck. So if I can't breathe, then my black life doesn't matter. I can't wait for your rose-tinted glasses of America to be shattered.
Okay, so you can see a lot of the things going on in that video, and a lot of them happened in America. Now the question is, why is this relevant to you? Black people have been trying to fight for justice and equality for many years, and unfortunately, a lot of the individual cases that are brought up are dismissed as kind of overreacting, or there not actually being an issue there. Now, as fellow human beings, it is our job to help them fight for justice. It is not their problem alone. Racism at the moment is a very taboo subject, so people don't really want to talk about it, they feel awkward addressing it, and that needs to change in order for racism to eventually disappear. A lot of us have something called white privilege. Now, you may not have heard of it before, and you may not quite know what it is, so we will look at that later, but it means that some of us are better listened to, and our opinions unfortunately are more valued than others, and we can help to make that change. Okay, so if you watch this video, you'll find out a little bit more about what white privilege is.
White privilege is never having to Google whether a country or a city is racist before booking a trip. White privilege is never being confused for another person from the same race, even though you look nothing alike. White privilege is never having to think about whether wearing your hair the way it grows from your head naturally will be seen as unprofessional. White privilege is never having to wonder whether you didn't get that job or that promotion because of the color of your skin. White privilege is never being told that the way you speak is articulate because it conforms to a white approved standard. White privilege is never having to worry that the way you speak will be seen as unintelligent because it doesn't conform to a white approved standard. White privilege is never having to worry that your intellect or your ability will be questioned because of the color of your skin. White privilege is being able to go into a store and not be followed by the storekeeper because they assume that you're going to steal something. White privilege is not realizing that every month is White History Month. White privilege is the ability to be completely oblivious when it comes to race. White privilege is never being asked to speak on behalf of your entire race because as a white person, you're seen as an individual and not a monolith. White privilege is the ability, and quite frankly, the audacity to say, I don't see color. White privilege is having instant credibility and being believed when you say something. White privilege is not having to think about your race or your skin color on a daily basis. White privilege is never having to fear that you or one of your family members will become the next hashtag.
Now the question for you guys is, does racism exist in the UK, and does white privilege exist in the UK? What I want you to do with this now is to try this TikTok challenge where some of our teachers are going to give it a go. All you have to do is put up 10 fingers and put a finger down if the statement applies to you. So let's watch and see.
Put a finger down if you have been called a racial slur. Put a finger down if you've been followed in a store unnecessarily. Put a finger down if someone has crossed the street to avoid passing you. Put a finger down if you've had someone clench their purse in an elevator with you. Put a finger down if you've had someone step off of an elevator to keep from riding with you. Put a finger down if you've been accused of not being able to afford something expensive. Put a finger down if you have had fear in your heart when being stopped by the police. Put a finger down if you have never been given a pass on a citation that you deserved. Put a finger down if you have been stopped or detained by police for no valid reason. Put a finger down if you have been bullied solely because of your race. Put a finger down if you have been denied service solely because of the color of your skin. Put a finger down if you've ever had to teach your child how not to get killed by the police. Any fingers left? That's privilege.
Okay, so you were able to see some differences between the different teachers here at Ernsford Grange, and that was in our own hometown of Coventry. Now, looking at the bigger picture in the UK, we can see that white ethnic groups actually have the shortest custodial sentences than any other ethnic group in the UK. Black people in the UK are over 9 times more likely to be stopped than their white counterparts, and that was one fact from the government website. But actually looking at it, I found that only 16% of the black people who were stopped and searched under the suspicion of carrying a weapon actually had a weapon and were arrested, whereas 21% of the white people who were stopped and searched were carrying a weapon as well. So that just shows that if there was no racial bias involved, then perhaps we would stop more crime. Black people are actually 3 times more likely to be excluded in schools, and black people are overrepresented at university, meaning they go there more, but they end up in lower paid jobs. So there's something going on here. Okay, so how can you, our students at Ernsford Grange, help? There are so many things that you can do, but it all starts with being educated. So I've made a list of lots of things that you can do, but beginning with some books that you can read, which you guys can all have a look at later, some shows you can watch on Netflix, one of which actually did make me cry. So I watched this a really long time ago. It's called When They See Us, and it really shows some real life examples. It was based on a true story of the kinds of things that racial bias can actually end up to and how it can affect people's lives. The other things that you can do, so you guys can actually email local MPs to make sure that they push for change to happen. Now, that might seem complicated, but on here I've put a list of different resources you can use. So you've got templates of emails, and all you have to do is add your name and your MP's name and just send it to them, and hopefully change can happen. You can sign petitions. So there are so many petitions out there. I've named just a few, and they all represent different causes, so please do have a look. You can donate. Now I know, again, this may not apply, a lot of you may not be in the situation to donate, but at the bottom I've put a link to a bit of information that tells you how you can give money without actually paying. So there is a YouTube video that you can watch, and every single ad that plays that you watch will allow money to be given to the cause, so you can just leave it on in the background. Okay, so I'm just going to hand it over to Mr. Hudson, who's going to tell us a bit about what Ernsford will do for you guys.
Hello Ernsford. So some of you may know I'm one of the assistant head teachers here, and my job is to oversee the pastoral system and make sure that students and their families and our wider community get the support that they need. So my job over the next couple of years is going to be looking at these 3 key things, okay? And these are going to be our promises to you. So we're going to review our race equality policy, and that's not just for Ernsford, but across our family of schools as well. And that's making sure that the students within our schools get the right support that they need. We're also going to revisit our curriculum. So we're going to look at, are we teaching Black history the right way? Are we teaching other really important moments in history the right way? And we'll also look at other subjects such as English and science as well, and to see how it fits into that. And the very last thing we're going to do, and I think this is really important, and I'm going to invite Miss back in just now. We're going to support you, and we're going to take a knee as well, because we think it's really important, and we're going to be here to support you in whatever you need. So I'm going to pass her back over to Miss now.
Okay, so the last thing I want to say is just thank you so much for listening. I think this topic is really important and it's really sensitive as well. So you guys have to take in mind your own mental health, and sometimes when you're scrolling through social media or you're watching the news and you see a video or something that becomes too much for you, please just take a break, turn your phone off for a bit or just log off for a bit and take that time to worry about your own mental health too, because it is important. Just the final note, Black Lives Matter does not mean that all lives do not matter. It just means that there's one particular group who is in more need right now, and we need to tackle that in order for all lives to matter. Thank you.